Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa, and we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Today's video is a food video. I have to get through some more stuff to clean out the fridge and that of stuff that we've had sitting there for a while. Worked on some sweet potatoes that we got given in the hamper before the next hamper is due on Saturday. So today is Sunday, it's due on Saturday, so it's a week away, so we need to make sure that we've got room in the fridges and things like that to be able to store anything that comes with that. So that is what I'm working on over the next couple of days, is clearing out anything that needs to be processed so that we have room for the next lot of stuff to come in. So join me for that. We processed a whole bunch of sweet potato. We made some sweet potato brownies that I'm still working on, a baked oatmeal that I'm still working on the recipe for to get it right for us. What else did we do? We did pizza. So we had sourdough pizza for dinner, and I tried again that bakerstone with the Bunnings pizza oven, and I found a lot better ways to use it. The pizzas turned out very nice in it. So I've shared that as well. So come along and see what we got done today, and I will see you again in the next day or so. Thanks for watching, guys. So I started the morning off with a baked oatmeal for the kids. Now I'm still experimenting with the baked oatmeal recipes that I've been using. I've tried a few from various different places, trying to find one that the kids like well enough that they eat it, but is the right ratios to make me comfortable with what's in it and things like that too. We're low on eggs at the moment, so I'm using the ones that have the less eggs in it and trying to get the ratios correct. Trying to make enough that they can eat it for breakfast and then potentially some breakfast the next day as well, that sort of thing. So this tray I didn't soak overnight, so I've been doing some that were soaked overnight, some that weren't. I don't have a lot of fridge space at the moment, so I did this one first thing this morning. It meant that the end result was quite wet and less cake-like, but they actually kind of prefer it that way. I didn't have any yogurt for them to pour over it, so I didn't have anything else for them to pour over it. So the fact that it was wet was quite a good thing for them. Also have the issue in winter that they always have some sort of fat in it, whether it's a coconut oil or a butter or a ghee or whatever, and in winter all of that's frozen, like not frozen but solid when I'm making these things. So I used some mild olive oil in this one to see if that would work, and no one had any problems with that flavour in there either, so that worked out fine. The serving size becomes the other thing too. This particular container, it ends up quite thick, which is partly why it's wet in the middle, whereas one of the larger containers, larger rectangles, it ends up thinner. So I'm still deciding what works for us. The ratio, I do 600 grams of oats in these, which works out about 100 grams of oats per child, which, you know, should be 2 servings theoretically. But the kids eat what they eat, and that's how it works. So I am still working on this. I still haven't got it quite how I want it, but they all enjoy eating it, so that's fine. It doesn't matter which recipe I use, they will eat it. It's just that I'm not perfectly happy with it yet. So we made that for breakfast, and they had a jar of stewed apples over the top of it as something for them to eat that was warm. They definitely prefer porridge or warm breakfasts when it's cold, which means that it's more for me to do, but that's, you know, part and parcel of life in general. So we served that up, and they ate that for breakfast. Next thing I had to get done was the pizza dough that I had made last night to be shaped. So this was an overnight proof. This has been inside in a corner away from the fire, but inside where it's warmer, proofing overnight. And my pizza dough recipe makes 8 300-ish gram bases, so I divided it into the 8. I do weigh it because I want the pizza bases to be similar sizing, so I cut it up into pieces and then weigh it and try and keep it fairly uniformly, the 300 grams, and I use a bit of flour on the top and bring it all into a ball in my hands, as you do with anything that you want to have that second proof within the shape. So I divide it into 8, then bring the corners, the outside edges into the middle, turn it over and make it into a ball. I use whatever trays I have to do its second proofing in, and the second proofing is done in the fridge, and I use semolina to stop it from sticking to the container and to itself. So I cover it all in semolina, which I like because when you're cooking the pizza it gives it a little bit of an extra crunch anyway on the base. So I divide it all up into 8, cover it in with semolina and stick it in the containers, and then I cover that, and that goes into the fridge until I'm ready to bake it. You can make this dough can sit in the fridge for up to 72 hours. It's really not an issue. I'm going to cook these tonight, but the longer it goes, sometimes the better flavour the dough has, because it's having that slow retard in the fridge. So 72 hours is quite a nice sort of a span for that. But I didn't do it in advance enough, so we're doing pizza for dinner tonight. So that has gone into the fridge. This is what this batch of oatmeal looked like cooked. So you can see it's quite wet in the middle, and it's stuck quite badly to the surface of the pan as well, which it's fine, but it's not quite where I want it yet. So we're still working on the recipe, and we will get there, but it's not quite what I want yet. The kids wolfed it down with their apple anyway, though, so, and that's the main thing, is that it gets eaten. So anything that I make generally gets eaten. For one of the tasks today, I wanted to work on these sweet potatoes. So when we got the last hamper, we got a whole bunch of extra sweet potatoes, and they were in shopping bags, plastic shopping bags, and I have told the children multiple times over the last week or so that they needed to be removed from those shopping bags and put into our plastic crates that have airflow in that, because it's been freezing overnight and things like that, and they hadn't done it. So I had to go through these bags and pull out any that had any marks on them or rotting ends or things like that, and chop all the ends off and that sort of thing, and keep all the stuff that was good, which means that I ended up with a lot of sweet potato to work with. So what I did was I just peeled it all and cubed it all. I really like these little plastic cheapy peelers. I find them the most convenient things to use. They are the quickest for me, easiest to hold. I don't have to grip them too tight, so my hands don't get as tired as quickly and things like that. So I peeled them all and cubed them up into small cubes. Part of the reason I think these particular sweet potatoes were in the hamper is because they've got cracking in them. So I'd say it rained while they were in the field. That's what happens generally with pumpkins and stuff. I haven't grown sweet potatoes, so I'm not sure if it correlates, but if you've got pumpkins or tomatoes or anything like that and you get rains, then quite often they will crack. So most of these sweet potatoes have these big cracks in them, which I would say is why they were seconds. But it hasn't done any damage to the potato. It just means that I had to peel a little bit more off to get through that dirt that was in the cracks and things like that. So we peeled them all up, cubed them, and then I put them in the steamer. So I don't have a particularly large steamer. Like our veggie steamer that we use for dinner and stuff is only a little 18 centimetre one. I really need to upgrade it. But all I did was I used my steam juicer. So I just used the great big pot out the top of the steam juicer to steam this potato. So I cubed it all up and stuck it in the steamer, stuck it on the stove. While I had that going, while I was still doing the sweet potato, I had children requesting hummus to have with their rice crackers. So I still have these jars of instant hummus in a jar that I got off, it's off a book. I think it's the Not Your Mama's Canning book, which is chickpeas and toasted sesame seeds and garlic and all that all in the jar, and then you can it. And you pour it into your blender, add a little lemon juice and a little bit of olive oil, a bit of salt, and you blend it up till it's the right consistency. When I first did these, the kids really didn't like them. They were really not particularly happy with them, but I think that was because I'd still been buying store-bought. I've now stopped buying the store-bought, partly because the one that I used to buy that was inexpensive was in a tub at Costco and they don't sell it anymore. So I've stopped buying it, and it's taken them a couple of months, but now they will request the homemade stuff to have. Now, it's a little inconvenient because when they want it, I have to blend it up for them, and it only lasts a few days in the fridge, unlike the stuff that you buy in a shop. But it's one less thing to purchase and one more thing that I've got on the shelf. So I blended all that up to a nice smoothish texture and then gave that to them to have with their rice crackers. Once the sweet potatoes were fork tender, I don't want them too mushy because we're going to be using them for cooking. So once they were fork tender, I just put them aside into a big bowl. I just tipped them straight out into a bowl and then refilled the steaming pot to go ahead. We ended up doing 3 lots of this steaming pot, I believe. Quite a lot of sweet potatoes, so I've got a fair bit to work through over the next couple of days, whether I freeze some or cook it all up or make it all up or whatever I do. Because I was doing the sweet potato, I decided to put a sweet potato brownie together. I decided to use the Thermomix, so I've been working on translating the recipes that I've been using, if I was using any cup measurements to weight measurements, so that I can just pour it all in. I used spelt flour on this one because I quite like it's already a dense sort of a dish, so adding spelt flour doesn't impact texture at all, because spelt just makes things denser, and it's a brownie, so it's supposed to be dense. So I used some spelt flour and some coconut oil, eggs, and the sweet potato, all that sort of thing, and made this like chocolate brownie type thing. I'm not overly happy with the ratios that I used this time. It ended up a little bit overcooked, as you can see, and it's turned a little bit cake-like rather than brownie-like. I'm sure it'll still be well received, but it wasn't quite what I was after, so I'm still working on that as well. For dinner tonight, we had the pizza. As I said, I was going to do the pizza for dinner, so I'm giving the gas top pizza cooker another go tonight. So didn't work real well the other night, but I didn't have any semolina for a start, and it was a first go. So this time I have semolina, which is definitely helping. So I shape the pizza into rounds and I top it. So today we used some smoked chicken pieces, some bacon, some salami, corn, and some of the pasta sauce that I made the other day. I had a half full jar that it didn't fill a jar to can, so I kept that for pizza sauce. I think I will reduce, if I'm going to continue using this pizza maker, I will reduce the size of my bases, because 300 grams is just a little bit too much for the size that I'm making. I used to use 300 grams to make rectangles, and that was a bit different. They ended up thinner because they were big rectangles rather than rounds, but in the rounds I think that the 300 grams is just that bit too much size wise for each pizza, so I'm going to reduce that a little bit, I think. So the semolina definitely helped. I do need a pizza launcher, pizza peel though. Using the cutting board's a little too wide and you end up knocking it around. And if you've just pulled a pizza out with the metal one, you can't use the metal one to put the next pizza in, because as soon as the pizza hits it, it's going sticky because the pizza peel's hot. So I need a wooden launcher, I think, or just a second launcher. I did find too that I did it on the barbecue. I took the guards off the flames so that they weren't being diffused, and I closed the lid on and off. So there's plenty of airflow at the back of the barbecue. Like when the barbecue hood's closed, there's a great big swathe of airflow at the back. So I felt comfortable closing the hood on the pizza oven to keep it up to temperature. So all I did was I'd close the hood until it hit, max temp, and then I'd leave it open for a bit and I'd close it and I'd regulate the temperature a bit like that. It worked quite well. So the pizzas definitely had that, charred and puffy external bits that you expect to see on when it's cooked in this sort of manner. It all looked really good like that. So we served them up, and as per usual, we use a bit of duck egg mayo over the top. Mine has cheese on it, nobody else's does, but that bit of duck egg mayo adds that richness to the top of the pizza as well, especially for those that don't have cheese. So that was dinner as well. Thank you for joining me again on a food day today, and I have to work on more of that sweet potato and stuff. I'm also going to can up some sausage and potato zuppa toscana soup as well, probably tomorrow, so I'll bring you along for that as well. Thanks guys, I will see you next time.